we thought Jerry might try something on, but he didn't. We were right on the banks of the Rhine there, and he was on the other side. And I think it was one of these unofficial truces. And there was a little village hall there, and our cooks did our Christmas dinner, and we all sat in there, and from somewhere or other, the officers conjured a glass of beer for us all, and well, it was a Christmas dinner that I shall never forget, I suppose. I know when we came out from the little hall where we were, and there was some different soldiers there, and they were airborne. And I said, "What are you doing here, mate?" I'll use some of the expletives, but we were home on fucking leave, mate, and they brought us all back and sent us out here. That must have been really unsettling when you'd been home on leave from. I mean, they'd never been out of the UK. They hadn't been over in Europe. They'd been comfortably in, somewhere in Surrey or somewhere, and then they got to get home and was looking forward to a good Christmas, and then came the knock on the door, and they had to return immediately and say they landed in the cold Ardennes in Belgium.
We were due to go on leave Christmas because we were steadily being reinforced, when suddenly we're all warned to stand by. We're moving. We're issued with ammunition, grenades, what have you. Rushed down on a special train from Bulford to Dover to Calais, Christmas Eve, and rushed through to the Ardennes. And we were then told the Germans had broken through the American lines, and we were driven between Dinant and Namur. We arrived there early hours of Christmas Day, where we dug in.
Our guns were they were big Scammell lorries, Scammells of Watford, huge diesel things, and they had to, because our guns weighed 10 tons or so each, and they had to be pulled, and you had to have a lot of traction there. And where we found difficulty was in the Battle of the Bulge in the Ardennes. It was freezing cold weather, and all the roads were icy because the snow had melted and it had been crushed by vehicles into a film which had frozen. And you go, the old vehicles, you had to pull guns up it, and of course you had to go scattering earth on what name on there, and you get the gun slide off the road or something like that. But how we got through, I don't know.
Well, I suppose we had woolen vests and pants, you see. You never see them now, and that kept you warm. And then the uniform was warm. And then you had your greatcoat, so you were okay for yeah. Used to make a little fire, drop a petrol in the petrol cans, because they were square. They were marvellous things, a jerry can. I think he nearly won the war myself, because ours were like thin, like biscuit tin metal, like that big and that. Terrible. And if I had a bash, a jerry can would stand her. You could drop that on the floor and she'd hold that, yeah. Terrible bloody things. And we put anything in it with a drop of petrol, and you could put your billy can on top of it and cook.
We had leather jerkins and raincoats, and we all had woolen gloves, balaclava helmets, scarves which you could pull up round. But that was ordinary equipment, and you had the leather jerkin and greatcoat. But bearing in mind, you hadn't got a nice barracks or anything. You had virtually sleep where you could, and so barns were very favourite, especially if some straw up there. And even better if there were cows underneath, because they gave up a bit of warmth. And, well, it was so cold that you used to go and get your meal. Well, it wasn't a cookhouse, it was the cook who had his open fire or a primus, one of a big primus thing running petrol that we used to have. And he used to do the cooking there, God help him. And we used to go with our mess tins, and sometimes time we got it back to our billet, it was not cold, but it wasn't hot anymore, you know, and it didn't encourage you to go, especially at the final meal of the day. You knew it'd be hot and there'd be a hot drink, but if you had a comfortable loft with some hay and you had to go out in the cold, and you knew when you brought your meal back it would probably be cold anyway.
I have never been as cold in my life. It's thick with snow, icy, and to be truthful, it's lucky we all didn't get hypothermic because we were freezing. I had newspapers stuffed down my legs in between to try and keep warm. And you don't put your bare hand on your rifle, on the metal, it would stick to it, take the skin off your hand. It was that cold, bitter.
Did anyone get frostbite?
Yes, quite a few. And a lot of fellas were taken into hospital with hypothermia, especially if you were stuck in a slip trench. I mean, it was so many degrees below zero at night, you know, it was a bitter cold.
Did you ever get attacked in those conditions?
Oh yes, they shelled as regular.
Did you ever have to attack anyone? No, we just we
didn't go on the offensive till the beginning of January. Then we started advancing around Rochford, Bure, Bondy on a front, and that was when we drove the 5th Panzer Army back.
On our guns, there were oil anti-recoil things. But when the gun fired, of course, it all went back, and it was engineered that the whole of the gun barrel will go back on runners, and it was cushioned, and it was cushioned with oil. And on one night we had, I think, it was 20-something degrees of frost, and the oil buffers froze up, and we couldn't use our guns. I've never known cold like it. With the cordite got very, very cold, and that's the explosive, you know, that blows the shells out. And the colder the temperature, the less power you got from your cordite, because there wasn't the warm air to help to ignite the great explosion. I mean, virtually it's an enormous explosion in those guns, because the shells were 6 inches in diameter, and they weighed 100 pounds, and they had to be blown perhaps 15, 16 miles away, and so therefore you had to have a very strong explosion, and you could vary it. It wasn't in a steel case. You put it in not paper bags, but canvas, not very canvas, a light, almost like a woolen bag, and it was usually sticks of cordite, and always on the instructions to our gunners when they were getting ready to fire, always the same. HE, charge normal, that was high explosive. What shells to put in? You could put in solid projectiles, if you like, depending what you want to. If you want it for a tank, so the HE didn't do a lot of good. But if you could do a hit on a tank with a pure high explosive, just a heavy shell, it would pierce the armour, mate. Because the German tanks were better than ours. They were better armoured than ours.
Anyhow, I said the Americans who were there were very glad to be getting out. They said there's German panzers just down the road, which there were. Anyway, they sent fighting patrols against us, which we repulsed. And then New Year's Day, we got orders to advance and clear them out of the village of Bure. We attacked there, and there was severe house-to-house fighting. We were losing heavy casualties, well, they were as well. But we saw two sides of German soldiers. On the second day, we had a lot of wounded lying on the street, lads that had been hit as were trying to get into the houses which the Germans were occupying. And up the street came a German Panther. It was a German medium tank. And we thought, oh, for the worst. The medics were attending the wounded. Anyway, the tank clanked to a halt. He flicked open the lid and he spoke perfect English. He said, it's much too dangerous for you men here. Attend to your wounded and then take them away, but don't come back. It's too dangerous for you. Pulled the lid down and clanked on down the street. Earlier that day, we'd run across a house at a little hamlet called Bande, a couple of miles away, Bande in Belgium. A house boarded up in which an attempt had been made to set fire to it. When the boards were knocked down, we found the cellar packed with bodies, all of which there were Belgian civilians who had been shot through the back of the head and punched down the cellar steps. Actually, a friend of mine who still visits me from Blackpool, who's in our battalion, got the unenviable job of he's there. That's him on the other side of taking the Belgian women round to try and identify their sons and husbands. It's now a shrine, actually. They've made it into a memorial with all the photographs. We've been, actually, the wife and I. It's now a shrine.
What's that village called?
At Bande, B-A-N-D-E, Bande. It was SS had done it. The Germans, when the Americans had pulled out, the SS had moved in and they rounded up all these lads. One managed to run away and got away, and that's how we knew who had done it was SS. But they were all shot, all been then punched down the cellar steps. And as I say, that was the other side of German brutality. German humanity was the one with the tank.
I remember one bloke, Big Ike they called him, he came from somewhere near Ipswich out in the sticks, and he was a big powerful man, but what sort of the magazines in the world seems to count as a thick countryman, you know, a country bumpkin. But he spoke with a big accent, you know, and he did something that I could never in my life think of doing. But he used to go out looking for bodies, and most people had gold rings, didn't they? And he stripped the bodies of gold rings, stripped the Germans, actually. And one day he came back and he had some, and he says, how'd you get on? I got something. He said, I couldn't bloody get it off. And he said, well, I got it in the face. He cut his finger off. And he was dead, of course. And Big Ike said, he don't feel nothing. And that got to me somehow, being a simple sort of civilian. I know I was in the army, but that wasn't my idea, you know. If they were dead, you respected them and could, there for the grace of God, go away.
I think the official total that we'd lost 168 men taking Bure. But yet you will find in the records very little mention of British troops. But I can assure you that where we were attacking was the tip of the German 5th Panzer Army.
Battle of the Bulge.
The Battle of the Bulge. we were there. We took a lot of prisoners and handed them over to the Americans, the prisoner of war camps at Dino. And another amusing incident, while we were doing that, we took these prisoners and handed them over because they were SS, and the Americans wanted all of SS men to be handed over to them because they had been a massacre at Malmedy. 150 Americans had been shot dead. Anyway, our corporal decided we would break down near Brussels on our way back, which we did. And we all toodled into a nightclub. And I've got to explain to you that francs, 5 and under, were still legal currency. So when you took prisoners, the first thing you did was you looted them and collected all the francs you could. And we went into a nightclub and we were amazed that all those British troops all there in their best battle dress, all sipping wine and having the time of their lives. And we thought, 60 miles down the road, we're living in the open, being frozen to death, and these fellas are having the time of Nelly. And yet, I've often thought about it, they were the same France and German star that I do. But the nearest they got was 60 miles from the front.
I know we were in a wood on the border of Belgium and Germany, and overnight it was about, I don't quite know what time it was, but Jerry knew we were there, and we'd all dug in little trenches for ourselves, slit trenches to sleep below the surface because we weren't going in action that night. And it wasn't too healthy above ground because you could hear the machine gun bullets whistling through the trees. So they were a bit high for us, but you didn't want to suspect if they were going to bring them any lower. Anyway, I remember, well, we're down there as we all were in our little foxholes, and what I say, cowering, I don't really, but none of us wanted to stay above ground. Well, you didn't really risk your life, did you? And it must have been getting on midnight, and I heard a voice, and it was Major Palmer, and you know he was walking round, everybody all right, everybody hurt, and I thought, you've gone up in my imagination, in my estimation, mate, because you're a real professional soldier, which he was, you know. And I always respected him more after that.
And that's when we took a lot of prisoners. We had to take them to Dino, the American camp at Dino. Some of them were SS, that was why we got the order to take them there.
What were the prisoners like you took?
A bit subdued, to be truthful. But we fed them. They did get fed. But a lot of them said they were glad to be out of it.
Did they still think Germany would win?
No, they knew they were beaten. Because one fellow had said, he didn't say it to me, but he said to some others, "You're still in the war. We've finished. We're out. You people are still at risk. You're still in it."
Did any of them try and talk to you at all about getting to tell my relatives I'm alright or anything?
They were very evasive in ways when you tried to talk to them, because on the Rhine crossing, during the advance through journey, we captured the German headquarters with the general and the lot in it, and I spoke to a few of their officers, and they were always evasive, you know, as why they were continuing to offer resistance when they must have known it was all over. But it's the way they were. I suppose we would be the same. Yeah.
I remember now seeing, it was in Germany somewhere, and we just coming out of a wood, and there was another wood on the other side, far away on the other side of the road, and I suddenly saw a stirring at the edge of the wood, and there was a plane coming down. And, AIN, I mean, not that a plane, a a plane of land coming down, and one or two figures appeared like that, and they were German soldiers surrendering, and they made sure there were no fighting troops in the area at the time, and then they hid until the infantry had gone through, because they knew, as we all knew, that the assault infantry had got no time to take prisoners.
We were moved up to Holland, near Venlo, on the banks of the River Maas, which we were dug in there. Facing us was the 7th German Parachute Division. And we were confined more or less to fighting patrols, in and, going across, taking a prisoner, and they would do the same. We lost a couple of men there. Terry was killed there. That lad, Terry of ours, was killed there. A bit of shelling went on, and we were there to beginning of March, when we were suddenly pulled out, flown home to England, and told that we were to be prepared for an impending airborne operation, which turned out to be the Rhine crossing.